You are not you while living for others. How your identity dissolves when you live to please, and how to reclaim it. There's a certain kind of silence in the morning, not peaceful, not kind, a silence that feels like absence. She stands in front of the mirror, face freshly washed, the light cold and merciless, and yet, no matter how long she looks, she doesn't see herself. Only a mask, slightly tired eyes, a mechanical softness around the mouth. She brushes her hair slowly, carefully, like someone performing a ritual they no longer believe in. Every day she gave away a piece, a slice of time, a smile she didn't feel, a yes she didn't want to say. She thought it was love. She thought it was goodness. But somewhere along the way, she disappeared. She was the reliable daughter, the patient partner, the accommodating friend, the responsible mother, the flexible colleague, a woman carved out of should. And all the while, something inside her whispered, "This isn't me." But the whisper was drowned by other voices, louder, needier, always asking for more, and she gave and gave and gave. Now she looks at her reflection and sees a ghost of the woman she might have been. She doesn't cry. The sadness has dried into fatigue, but the silence in the room says enough. You've been living for everyone else, and you don't even know who you are anymore. It starts early. They teach little girls to be sweet, to not interrupt, to say thank you even when they feel hurt, to be liked, to be chosen, to not be too loud, too angry, too wild, too different. They are rewarded for being accommodating, punished, subtly or sharply, for resistance. And so, without noticing, she learns to abandon herself. Not in one sudden moment, but like erosion. One "it's okay" at a time. One "don't worry about me" at a time. Until her needs shrink, her voice fades, and her inner fire dims. This is the root of the victim archetype. Not weakness, but self-abandonment masked as kindness. A life where you run on borrowed fuel, other people's approval, gratitude, validation. She becomes the emotional caretaker, the peacekeeper, the buffer between others and discomfort. She never asks, "What do I want?" because that would make her feel guilty. Selfish. She's been trained to feel guilty for choosing herself, so she smiles while dying inside. She listens to others vent while her own soul screams unheard. She shows up even when no one shows up for her. You can't build a life on other people's needs. You can't bloom while erasing yourself. And yet millions of women are living this exact way. Silently, beautifully, tragically. But the truth is raw and undeniable. While you live for others, you are a ghost in your own life. And one day the ghost begins to whisper back, "What if I stopped? What if I said no? What if I chose myself, not once but every day?" It looks like goodness. It sounds like love. But it's a slow, quiet kind of death. This constant pleasing, because there's a difference between kindness and self-erasure. Kindness is born from fullness. Pleasing is born from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being left alone. She says yes, not because she wants to, but because she's terrified of what will happen if she says no. She gives more than she has, because she's afraid someone might call her selfish. She listens endlessly, because she learned long ago that her own voice doesn't matter as much. This isn't goodness. It's survival. And the paradox is cruel. The more she sacrifices herself, the less others value her. The more agreeable she becomes, the more invisible she feels. She bends until she breaks, and they still ask her to bend more. At first, people praise her. She's always there. She's so supportive. She never complains. But over time, they forget that she has needs too. And when she finally says she's tired, they act surprised. When she sets a boundary, they accuse her of changing, of being cold, of being ungrateful, of being difficult, because they were never in love with her. They were in love with her usefulness, and she let them. Why? Because guilt is a powerful leash, especially for women. Guilt makes them question every instinct for freedom. Guilt tells them that choosing themselves means betraying someone else. Guilt makes them apologize for wanting to be whole. And then there's shame. The shame of no longer being the good girl. The shame of making someone uncomfortable. The shame of finally having needs. She becomes a candle that warms the whole room while burning herself down to the wick. And when she's gone, the room just lights another candle. No one notices the ashes. That's the tragedy of false kindness. It's not seen as a problem until the woman disappears, into depression, into exhaustion, into silence, until one day she stops calling, stops offering, stops showing up. And even then, they might say, she's changed. Yes, she has, because she realized the world doesn't reward self-abandonment. It exploits it. And that changes everything. It begins with something small, a sigh that doesn't fade, a tear that falls in silence, a sentence said out loud, maybe for the first time, I'm tired of this. Not a dramatic explosion, no grand rebellion, just a whisper. But this time the whisper isn't ignored, because deep inside her, something ancient has started to stir, something raw, something real. The illusion cracks. She sees it now. The game she's been playing. The role she's been cast in. The way she twisted herself into shapes just to be accepted, to be loved, to not be alone. And the worst part? It still didn't work. No matter how much she gave, it was never enough. She kept hoping that someone would notice her pain, reward her sacrifice, finally give back. But they didn't, because she trained them not to. This is the cruel clarity of awakening. And it hurts. It burns. It feels like betrayal. Not by them, but by herself. At first it's chaos. She wants to scream, she wants to cry, she wants to take it all back. Every time she smiled when she wanted to walk away. Every time she stayed silent instead of saying, that's not okay. But there's no going back, only forward, through fire. The process of returning to yourself is messy. It doesn't look spiritual. It looks like rage, like slamming a door, like saying no with a shaking voice, like walking away without explaining yourself. There will be guilt. Oh, how there will be guilt. Every step toward freedom will be haunted by echoes. You're hurting them. You're being selfish. You're too much. But she keeps walking, because now she knows. This is not cruelty. This is healing. Then comes fear. The fear of being alone. The fear of not being liked. The fear of losing relationships built on her obedience. But she faces that fear, because she'd rather be alone than erased. And then, the stillness, the beautiful, terrifying stillness. No more running, no more performing. Just her, naked, flawed, unapologetic. She begins to feel again, to want, to dream, to remember who she was before the world told her who to be. And in that quiet space, something remarkable happens. Her first honest no. Her first unapologetic yes. Her first night sleeping deeply, without pretending all day. This is the return. But it doesn't feel like a return to the past. It feels like meeting someone new, someone fierce, someone soft, someone entirely, beautifully herself. And she realizes coming back to herself didn't start with love. It started with truth, even when it was ugly, even when it hurt, especially then, because only truth can rebuild what guilt and fear destroyed. They say she's changed. They whisper it like an insult. She's colder now. She used to be so sweet. She's different. Yes, she is. Because the woman she used to be was dying, quietly, politely, beautifully. She was a garden tended by others, but never by herself. Now she's become something wild, untrimmed, not always pretty, but fully alive. She says no, and doesn't explain herself. She walks away and doesn't look back. She puts herself first and doesn't flinch at the judgment in their eyes. And that's uncomfortable, not for her, for them, because they don't know what to do with a woman who no longer apologizes for existing, who no longer laughs to soften her truth, who no longer dims her light to make others feel better. She's no longer easy to please, no longer easy to manipulate, no longer easy to keep small. And yes, people leave. Some friends fall away. Some relationships fracture. Some family members withdraw. But none of that destroys her, because the ones who only stayed for the convenience of her silence were never truly with her. And strangely, even in the loneliness, she feels more whole than ever, because this new solitude is not emptiness, it's space. Space for her voice, space for her body, space for her soul. She doesn't rush to fill it, she lets herself breathe. The world keeps spinning. The demands don't stop, but she does. She pauses. She listens inward. What do I need? What do I want? What do I believe? She begins to live not from guilt, but from clarity, not from fear, but from integrity. And it's not always peaceful. Some days the old self knocks on the door, the pleaser, the apologizer, the caretaker. She doesn't hate her, she just says gently, not today. We're doing this differently now because power, real power, is not loud. It's not about control. It's about presence. The kind of presence that refuses to betray itself just to be loved. This is the new woman. Not perfect, not always soft, but deeply rooted. She is not for everyone, she knows that. And she no longer tries to be. Her worth is not measured in likes, approval, or comfort. It is measured in truth, in freedom, in the deep knowing that she no longer needs to be anything but herself. Morning again. But this time, the silence is different. Not empty, sacred. She stands before the same mirror, the same face, the same skin. But the eyes are lit from within, not with makeup, not with effort, with presence. She sees herself fully, clearly, not a role, not a mask, not a collection of shoulds, just her. She doesn't need to smile. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. There's a coffee cup nearby. The room smells like peace. She takes up space now, in her home, in her day, in her body. Not like a guest, like the owner. The inner monologue is no longer cruel, no more endless measuring. Did I do enough? Did I say it right? Did I disappoint? No. Now it's simpler, quieter, more honest. This is who I am today, and that is enough. Her reflection is not perfect. There are tired lines, faint signs of life lived and pain survived, but she doesn't flinch. She honors them. Every wrinkle, every scar, every inch of softness or strength earned. Proof that she existed, that she chose herself. Again and again, even when it was hard, she gets dressed slowly, no longer choosing clothes to please someone else's eyes. She dresses to feel herself grounded, real, sovereign. Outside, the world still moves fast, still noisy, still demanding, but inside her, a quiet steadiness. She's no longer the woman who needed to be loved to feel worthy. No longer the girl who mistook acceptance for love. No longer the shell of someone always available, always agreeable, always half gone. Now she's whole, unshakable, not because life got easier, but because she stopped betraying herself to make it easier for others. She sits down. She eats slowly. There's no rush, no one waiting for her to perform. She's not behind. She's exactly where she needs to be. This is not the end of her journey. It's the beginning of a new one, a journey where her needs are not afterthoughts, where her voice is not muted, where her truth is not a burden. And if people leave, they leave. If they stay, they stay. But she no longer shrinks herself to fit. She expands. She breathes. She chooses. She loves fiercely, but never at the cost of herself. And as she walks past the mirror one last time that morning, she doesn't pause. She doesn't need to look for herself anymore because she knows she's finally home.